Ultra.
Goes huge for Ultra, and they get their first home series victory.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to another episode of Made in Esports. I'm one of your hosts, Spencer. With me is Chris. We've got a great episode for you guys today. As you guys know, the Stage 3 tournament the Major for the Call of Duty League is coming up. I'm very excited to talk about it, and that's what today's show is going to be about.
And this is one of the first times where we are going into a major for any Toronto team and having these really high expectations for it. Like, I can never say, like, before Major 2, like, they're looking good, but it wasn't like oh wow, like I expect these people to perform really well. Never in season 1 was I expecting that either. Like, this is genuinely new and interesting territory for us.
Yeah, I think Toronto should be considered one of the favorites to win this major. I think there's a top tier of teams. I think Toronto's absolutely in that echelon. Obviously, you got teams like FaZe, Thieves, NYSL, Dallas. There's some other teams in that conversation, but Toronto's right there. And again, guys, before we jump into this, we're going to give you our sort of bracket breakdown, if you will. Let us know what you think about Stage 3. Who's going to win the major? How do you think Toronto's going to perform? If there is going to team to maybe win it outside of Toronto or FaZe, we did this last time, who's going to be that team that just gets hot? Who's going to be the Toronto Ultra of Stage 3 that maybe gets hot, goes on a loser's run, and quote-unquote shocks the world, if you will. So that the way, guys, again, like, subscribe, give us a comment, all that fun stuff. The algorithm appreciates it, and let's just jump right into this.
I appreciate it, too.
Chris
Spencer
appreciates
doesn't,
it.
but I appreciate it.
I appreciate it. Not as much as Chris, for some reason, but also very much appreciate it. Okay, so that out of the way, let's just jump into the first matches. Let's just go into losers. Elimination round 1. We're going to kind of breeze through these first couple ones. It is the LA Guerrillas versus the Seattle Surge. This one was actually surprisingly difficult for me because I think on paper, Seattle is the better team. But I think that if you've watched the games, it's became pretty apparent that they haven't fully integrated Decimate into their roster yet, which is, again, fair. It's a new roster. You have to give them time. And LAG has looked surprisingly coordinated and well put together. So I actually think there's a pretty good possibility that the Guerrillas take this in a 3-2. I think it's going to be very close. I would not be surprised in the slightest if Seattle comes out and beats them. That was my initial prediction just because of how they looked on paper. But I think the Guerrillas are the right play here.
Yeah, I agree. And I think Guerrillas were the right play for me because they put up a good fight against Florida. I'm going to give them that. And I think we all had a question mark around Sheen when he joined the roster. But he's definitely panned out to be better than we thought he would be.
Yeah, Chino's looked good. I honestly thought this team was going to be an easy 3-0. Like, if you had told me this is going to be the matchup with these rosters when it first happened, I would have said 3-0 Seattle Surge, no question. But, hey, they've looked pretty good. They've impressed me. Can they close up? That's still to be seen. But you never count out Seattle when they get hot. Octane and Gunless Pristine, they can do it all. Same with Decimate, right? But I just don't know if they've had enough time to integrate that roster yet. So we'll see.
Yeah, we'll definitely see. Next up, you want to just briefly touch on London and Paris?
Yeah, I think London's going to take this 3-2.
Yeah.
I think both teams are good. I think either team can win this. I just think London, again, looks a little bit more on the same page right now. I think they're finally integrating Zap into the roster. Paul X can fry. We absolutely know that. And then Shawnee and Zed are kind of those well-rounded pieces to round out that roster. Again, going to be a close one. Would not be surprised in the slightest if Paris figures it out and takes the W. The reason I'm breezing through this is because, personally, I don't think either of these matchups truly matter because I have them both losing in the next one. So yeah. It's a tough call, but...
it doesn't matter here.
It might.
It does. I don't think they're going to go on a hot run. That's what I'm saying. Like,
I agree.
They just come up in elimination round 2 and they're looking at Roker in the face. And it's crazy because Roker is like 7th place right now, but they don't feel like a 7th place team. They feel like a lot better than a 7th place team.
And don't get me wrong, they've looked, I guess, shaky at points during Stage 3, but I still really like their roster, on paper. I still think this team could get hot, like Toronto, get some confidence, win a few series, and actually go on a run. And if a team does knock them out, I don't see it being the London Royal Ravens. And maybe I'm wrong. London does have a lot of talent on that team, and they're finally integrating Zap into the mix here. And maybe once that team gets fully integrated, they'll be more dangerous than I'm initially giving them credit. But personally, right now, I have Rocker winning this, and actually I have it being a 3-0.
Yeah, okay, I have that too. And next up, Optic versus LAG, and it could be a bigger fight because really Optic has been looking shaky lately too.
Definitely, yeah.
Especially compared to their season 1 prowess. But I just really still, once again, I think we're two people who really do like to weigh on paper skills versus performance. Because when you're in tournament time, lots of that stuff goes out the window.
Sometimes. Yeah.
Sometimes, but it's just kind of like it's tournament time. It's different almost. But I kind of weight past performances a little more as well. But we can't deny the fact that Optic's really good on paper. So we're saying 3-1 here.
Yeah, I'm one of those people who, again, I do agree that like I always like to think that the best teams will usually come out and perform in the tournament when it matters the most. I think you're right. I think you could, in theory, make an argument that based around the most recent performances, LAG is actually the play here to upset Optic and piss off the green wall, if you will. But personally, I can't make the prediction. I have too much faith that when push comes to shove and it is the final major and backs are against the wall, I think Optic will clutch up. And yeah, I have them taking it 3-1.
Exactly. Now going back up to winners or bracket, FaZe versus Dallas. I don't think this is a hard decision.
No,
I think it's pretty easy. Atlanta FaZe versus 3-1. Now the thing is that like Dallas is still a good team. Like let's
a really
not get
good
that
team.
wrong.
Yeah,
but I feel like they have not been looking as good with Fellow in the mix. I don't know if that's simply because they haven't had the team coordination there, and I think Crim6 has performed better previously than he has currently. Not to say that he's on the down and out, but it's just kind of going through a little hiccup. So
well, I think that team as a whole has just been a little bit shaky, and it's taken them a minute to find their footing since they made the Hook transaction. They looked really good in their most recent game versus Minnesota, to be fair. So we'll give them that. If that's a sign of things to come, this team, I'll never count out Dallas, right? They have too much talent on that roster. They're the greatest player of all time, Crim6. They have an insanely talented sub duo. The former MVP in Shotzi. I'm a big Illy fan, Canadian kid. Good for him. Fellows actually look pretty good. So if they can truly get that teamwork in order, I can see them upsetting a lot of different teams, actually. But I just don't think FaZe is one of them. You know what I mean? I still hold FaZe to an extremely high regard. And even though they're coming in here as, like, I think the third seed in their bracket, or the second seed, sorry, I forget the specific seeding. I still think they're, like, the most dangerous team in that group.
Yeah.
And I have them winning 3-1.
Exactly. And just going down Florida versus Thieves really quickly here too. I don't think there's any question about this either. Just LA has a talent.
Yeah, I mean, there's always question with Florida because they're one of those teams that I feel like can beat any team on any given night if they get hot. Like Skies and Awakening are so talented that if they're firing on the right cylinders, and again, LA Thieves I think should be better on paper, but they just created that roster, right? We've seen one game of Hook. So I could actually see a world in which maybe their roster isn't fully integrated yet, and Florida gets hot and catches them off guard, and maybe wins both search and destroys and then steals a respawn.
Yeah.
And takes a 3-2. So I wouldn't count out Florida because they do have some talent on their roster. They've just been so inconsistent all year. And I do agree that on paper, if LA Thieves, once they figure everything out, and I think that they will, are going to be an elite championship caliber team. So I do have them winning 3-1. I wouldn't make it as cut and dry as I think you initially articulated it.
All right. I'll make it less cut and dry then.
But I do agree. You're right. I think the Thieves are going to win. So I'm not disagreeing with you. I think there's a slight upset potential, even though I don't think it'll happen.
Okay, I understand that. And this is, I think, LA Thieves team you have to really look out for next.
Yes.
Next major. But yes. Okay. Let's go over to that then. Toronto versus FaZe. We're biased. Yeah. I'll admit, I initially had Atlanta being Ultra 3-2, but then Spencer slapped me in the face. He's like, "We're Ultra podcast, Chris. What are you doing?
We're Canadian. We picked the Canadians.
We're Canadian.
When it makes some sense.
It makes some sense. And this is really weird because I feel like I know there's no reason not to put Toronto at the top right now. They've consistently won, being the top teams. They should be at the top. There's this part of me thinks that Toronto's like a Moneyball team. They're like a Moneyball team, and if you guys watch that movie, they won 32 games, almost in a row or something like that.
It was less than that. I know what you mean. They won 20. Yeah, it was a lot. Yeah.
Oh yeah. Anyway, the point is that if I'm ever talking to people and directly comparing individual talent between individual Toronto players and individual Atlanta players or Thieves players or Optic players or Dallas players, usually the ones on other teams are the consensus of being better, but Toronto just has this X factor. I don't know what the hell it is right now.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know why they're so damn good. So I just have this feeling in the back of my mind that that's going to run out at some point.
I kind of know what you mean.
I don't
Like
know
the same way that the A's got hot, went on that win streak, but at the end of the day, like the Yankees still beat them. It does kind of feel like we are the A's and Atlanta faces the Yankees. You know what I mean? Like you got Simp, you got a BZ, RCD, Celium. I kind of what you mean. The problem is I was so hot on Cammy and Kleenex coming into the year, and I'm not surprised that they're legitimately looking like some of the best players in the game because I always thought that was their ceiling, and they were inconsistent at points last year. But it was also like it was Kleenex's. Like, remember, he only played a few months at the end of the year. Like, I'm pretty sure this is Kleenex's first ever full CDL season, right? So you got to think that he's going to figure out that he's just going to improve, right? Cammy had flashes of being an MVP last year. Legitimately looks like one of the best players in the game. I've always been a fan of Insight. Well, I shouldn't say always. You know, when I went back to watch the old VODs of Kleenex when he first got brought in, my first question was, who's this Insight guy? So Insight knows what it takes to wins. He's looking incredibly talented. And I do agree that, like, you know, we were pretty hard on not having a backup for potentially Bance coming into the offseason. But Bance has looked obviously out of his mind right now. Like, he's playing some of the best Call of Duty I've ever seen him play, and that includes last year. So, yeah, like, I understand why you'd pick FaZe here, but every time I watch the Ultra play, every time I think they're about to blow a map, they clutch up, they win. It's hard not to pick the Ultra, especially considering I'm Canadian. Not biased.
Yeah, no, you're right. I'm realistically crazy, and I should get my brain.
No, you're not
checked.
crazy because I think that we have the talent. I wouldn't say that it's like as like apparent as like Yankees versus Moneyball. Like I do think that there's players on here who are all four are very talented, but it'd be hard pressed to say that Kleenex and Bance are more talented and better than Sip and BZ. You know what I mean? Like you're right. We just got some X factor with the teamwork and the confidence. We're just firing on all cylinders right now, making the right plays at the right time. So I have us winning 3-2, but it's gonna be a close one.
Yeah, let's go back down to elimination round 3 bracket then. Dallas versus.
No, we gotta do New York versus Thieves.
Oh yeah.
I have New York.
Yeah, New York 3-1.
3-1. I think that we literally just saw them play. New York won 3-1. Very close game. This is gonna be a close game, I think. But New York's hardpoint looks insane. I'm a huge fan of this roster. We actually said at the beginning of Stage 3, literally, who is the team to watch? Who could surprise a lot of people? We made a whole video about how it's New York. You know what I mean?
Turns out it's New York.
And turns out it's New York. And if this team's firing on all cylinders, they're deadly. Hydra's an absolute monster. I'm very excited to see that people finally have realized how talented this kid is. And I think they finally figured out their best four. So I'm excited, but you never know.
Yeah, you never know. And once Ellie gets knocked out, they're going to go face the Dallas Empire. And once again, just from previous experience, this is going to be a very, very close matchup.
Yeah.
And it's going to be almost a little bit of not a grudge match, but Hook versus Dallas is going to create a really good storyline.
Yeah, that's a good point.
But I feel like Thieves are going to come out on top, edging it out 3-2.
Yeah, and my logic for here is I actually love the Thieves roster on paper. I still wonder how long-term Venom and Hook are going to fit, because I feel like they're both sort of like finesse playmaking SMGs, but they can really figure out that team coordination. The LA Thieves have a ton of talent on paper. A massive Jaza fan, massive Venom fan. Obviously, Kenny and Hook are two of the best players in the world, right? Like over a long course of period of time. So I just think by this point they've had, this is their third match in this tournament, their fourth match under their belt. I feel like their team synergy is going to start to click. And this is where I think that like LA Thieves, we said which team can go on a run here that maybe some people aren't expecting. I think LA Thieves can be that team. If they get enough matches under their belt and they start to get this confidence and they start to figure out how to play together as a team, there's so much talent on that roster. I can actually see them going on an insane run. And I think that's why they're going to beat Dallas Empire 3-2, although obviously wouldn't be surprised to see it go the other way.
Yeah, I understand that. And then down to Atlanta FaZe versus Minnesota, 3-0. It just for Atlanta. Right?
Yeah, and again, Minnesota's a good team. I could see Minnesota taking a couple maps. I'd be hard pressed to say I could see them taking the series and having the upset. I'm just a huge Atlanta FaZe fan, right? Like we had them number 1 going into the year. I still think they're the best team in the game. So push come to shove, I'm taking Atlanta.
Yeah, I'll shove you a little bit there. So yeah, elimination round 5, guys. It's getting a little bit harder to, I guess, pick which one's going to win or not.
This is also assuming that these players get here, right? Like elimination round 5 could be fucking Dallas versus Minnesota, and these mean nothing. But yeah,
I think we talked about this a lot, but like same reasons. Atlanta versus Thieves. Atlanta wins 3-1.
Yeah, this is actually one I could see being upset though. This is the first time that I think that a team other than Ultra could beat FaZe. Yeah, again, if LA Thieves starts getting hot and they start firing on all cylinders, like I could actually see them making some noise here. With that being said, I still have Atlanta taking a 3-1.
Okay, talk about the winners final.
Yeah.
Spencer, who do you think's winning this?
This is gonna be another very close game. I actually think there's 3 clear teams right now. I think it's New York, Toronto, and Atlanta are the big 3 that I would really watch out for in terms of like who should be predicted to win these series. I have Toronto winning all 3-2. Just because again, I think New York's hard point's strong right now, but Toronto is such a good search and control team. It seems like their raid control and their garrison control are so elite, and you can't really avoid them. You can veto one, but you can't veto both. Their search and destroy, they didn't lose the search and destroy until the grand finals versus FaZe last major. Their search and destroy is incredibly elite. So I think that New York, that's one of their weaknesses, and it's just going to be hard to take a search or a control off of them. And I think that while they are undefeated in hard point, let's not slack on Toronto's hard point, right? You get them in the right mode. I think Toronto could also take a hard point. So I think they just have more ways to win this series.
Yeah, you're right. You're right. Like, we both know that their first hard point, Toronto, is a little bit shaky at some points.
Yeah, they can start off slow.
Yeah, they start off slow. They warm up their hands a little bit. And then down to elimination file, Atlanta FaZe, New York. This is a hard one to guess too, guys. I mean, like, Spencer thinks that LA is the one to take one off Atlanta. I think New York is probably one that could take one off Atlanta
I think they both can, yeah, but I think that I agree.
Yeah, but it's 3-2 Atlanta. And now we're getting Ultra versus FaZe. And I think we're looking at a 5-4 here for Ultra, but here's the one thing I'm concerned about. How often has a team beat FaZe 3 times in a row?
That's a good point.
3 times. Beat him in Major Final 1, beat him in the freaking bracket, and then beat him in Major Final for 3.
Maybe we just have FaZe's number. We kind of had it
think
last
about that
year,
statistic?
Right? Last year we matched up well versus FaZe.
Yeah.
But I agree. You're right. The fact that a team can go out there and beat Arcity, Celium, Simpatibizi 3 times in a row.
It's just...
I say it out loud. I know. Yeah. No, I
It's a hard statistic to swallow.
So what would make you feel better if we lose the first matchup and then go to losers runs and come back in the grand finals? You think we're more?
Yeah, I don't know why, but it would. I don't know why. But I just sit here and be like, man, at least like the stats are on our side if we lose one.
Yeah.
And I don't know what I even mean by stats, but I just like feel like beating like I don't know how I got to bring up how many times Atlanta FaZe have lost.
I was gonna say I'm pretty sure they're independent events, so I actually think they're not correlated at all via stats.
No, they're not. But if I just like think of Atlanta FaZe,
I know
think like
mean.
they've lost 2 series matches or 3 matches. They watched
I
one
forget how much they've lost, but it's not a lot. I think the point the point
I'm saying is that like let's say they've lost 2 before here than now, and they lose another 2 to Ultra. 3 of their 4 losses are going to be to Ultra. It just seems like
they lost to New York. I think they lost one more this series. Weren't they 3-2? I should have looked this up. The group standings. I know they lost to New York in the group stage. That's why New York's first seed. I thought they lost once more, but maybe I'm wrong.
Let me just look that up. Probably look that up.
Either way, you think that FaZe is gonna be one of those teams that if you beat them twice in a row, they're gonna be able to figure it out and they're gonna be able to beat you when it matters the most, especially in a 9-game series where they have a bunch of different ways to win, right? You got to beat them 4 straight search and destroys. Although if any team can do it, I think it is Toronto. That's why they match up so well versus them. I just think right now that I think you got your big 3. I think you got New York, Toronto, and FaZe. Those are the teams to really watch. Who I think I think you could predict any 3 of those to win, and it wouldn't be like a dark horse or a crazy pick where anybody would be like, what? Like if you picked Optic, I'd be like, really? They can do it, but I'd just be surprised. My team to watch that I seriously think could go on a run is LA Thieves. I think if they get hot and they get the team coordination figured out and they're all firing on the same page, they have that confidence. There's so much talent on their roster that I wouldn't be surprised if the Thieves are able to take this one.
And that's this is the catalyst to do it, right? If you're playing normal matches, you play 1 or 2 matches a week over a couple of weeks, this is where they can easily get into the groove of it and then just click for a weekend.
Yeah. Regardless, that's probably it for you guys. I had Toronto winning this. I would not be surprised at all. Yeah, Atlanta's lost 3 times, so I would not be surprised at all if Atlanta FaZe were to take it. They came in as a 2nd seed, so we'll see, guys. Anyways, thank you for watching. Hope you enjoyed. Let us know who you think is going to take it. Who's your dark horse team? That's always what I'm most excited to hear, right? Who do you think is going to potentially get hot and go on a run here? And as always, guys, like, subscribe. Thank you for watching, and enjoy.
Enjoy.